Good morning. Welcome to United Way of Pierce County and the City of Tacoma's virtual press conference. We have 3 speakers on the agenda today who will share updates on Tacoma's Guaranteed Income Initiative. You will hear from the Mayor of Tacoma, Victoria Woodards, Donna Pinto, President and CEO of United Way of Pierce County, and Abigail Lawson, Director of the Guaranteed Income Program. We will open the chat for questions after the speakers conclude their remarks. We are recording this press conference. Mayor Woodards, the microphone is yours.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. Welcome to this press conference. I'm so excited to be here today, and I'm so excited that you are joining us to discuss Tacoma's Guaranteed Income demonstration. And this is the first day of our disbursement. Tacoma's program Grit, which stands for Growing Resilience in Tacoma, began in the summer of 2020 when my good friend and former mayor of Stockton, California, Michael Tubbs, reached out to me and asked me to be a part of this national network of mayors for guaranteed income. I quickly said yes, having admired the work that he had been doing and knowing that at some point I'd love to do that kind of project in Tacoma because of the great work that United Way was already doing. After saying yes, I immediately began thinking about who could be our partners in this work in addition to United Way. And I reached out to Donna Pinto, who has joined us today, and I'm so grateful that she said yes. Along with the United Way of Pierce County, we added Tacoma Housing Authority, Tacoma Urban League, the Center for Strong Families, and the Greater Tacoma Community Foundation, who were a part of those initial conversations to decide what would a pilot project look like in Tacoma. So I am here today to say that that pilot program is launching. And today, there will be members of our community there will be 110 members of our community who will receive $500 unencumbered for them to spend as they see fit to meet their needs. As we got together and formed Grit, we thought about what would be important for us. What would be our principles? Why are we doing this work? What do we want to change? And let me be clear that while this is a local demonstration, again, we are part of a national movement. There are pilot projects that are happening across this country to really show the value of a program like this to the federal government so that we can continue to advocate at the federal level, because we do know that at the local level, funding programs like this is incredibly difficult, in addition to trying to meet all of the other needs in community. But we've seen what a federal program looks like in some ways when we talk about child tax credits, we talk about the payments that we're giving out during COVID. Those are the kinds of guaranteed income payments that make a difference to everyone in our community. But as we thought about this, we thought about what is it in Tacoma while projects are happening across the country? What is it that we want to showcase in Tacoma? What's going to guide us to do this work? We came up with 4 guiding principles. One was to invest in ALICE. And that's a population that has already been identified by United Way as those who are struggling. And ALICE stands for Asset Limited, Income Constraint, and Employed. So these are people who get up every day trying to make a better life for themselves and their families, but they're not quite able to make ends meet. So we knew that there was already a focus on ALICE, that the United Way was already focused on trying to eradicate poverty in our community. And we thought this would be a great start. So we wanted to invest in ALICE. We wanted to cultivate resiliency. When families are empowered to make financial decisions and address crises on their own, that is what can be lasting. If we give them the authority and give them what they need to be able to empower themselves, then we can actually lift them out of poverty, or they can lift themselves out of poverty. We also wanted to make sure that we're changing the narrative through storytelling and data to build a case for supporting more equity in housing, childcare, physical well-being, and financial wellness, and to uplift the truth that poverty is a systems failure, not a personal failure. And then finally, to build support, to leverage the learnings that we are having and others are having across the country and experiences to really impact systems changes, because that's how this is going to be long-term. We're committed to this demonstration for at least a year. But a year will only give us a little bit of data. And while it will help some families, it won't help all families. And we want to make sure that we are building support so that every family who needs this kind of support, not just in the city of Tacoma, but in the country, can have this opportunity. And that unconditional cash programs and other strength-based policies that enhance, improve, and increase equity in the social safety net. That's what we wanted. That's what we wanted to achieve. That's what we're focused on as we move forward. As I said, the city of Tacoma accepted its initial starter funds in November of 2020. And let me be honest with you, while that is a year ago already, it's a year and a half ago, we have been working every day since then to get to this day, the day when we can release the funds. We're excited to announce, as I said, that it is officially underway. And today, payments will again go out, $500 to 110 participants. Now, I would like to invite President and CEO of the United Way of Pierce County and my incredible partner in this work, Donna Ponapento. Donna?
Great. Thank you so much, Mayor, and thank you all for joining us today. This really is an exciting day for all of us. So we have so looked forward to this. United Way is so pleased to partner with the city of Tacoma on this demonstration project, and we couldn't be more thrilled to be a conduit of this support. As the mayor mentioned, United Way is focused on poverty reduction, lifting families out of poverty, one family at a time. And Grit is really that natural evolution of work that's already being done by so many in our community. And this demonstration project, Grit is designed to demonstrate that a modest, as the mayor mentioned, no strings attached cash investment can improve economic stability, housing security, mental health, well-being, and reduce poverty overall in our community. So again, that brings us to today. As the mayor said, this is the first day that the Grit dollars are being dispersed, which means $55,000 is going directly in the hands of our community members as we speak. And we couldn't have gotten to this point without continued support of organizations and individuals around our community. Over the past year, we've hosted conversations, we've organized focus groups, and talked to people in our community with that lived experience, met regularly with a steering committee made up of organizations, city, county, and state leaders, our partners at Mayor's Guaranteed Income and at the Center for Guaranteed Income Research at the University of Pennsylvania that supported us in determining recipient demographic, outreach, and onboarding of the 110 recipients. So with this think tank that has been our community over the past year, we've determined our recipient population, 110 Tacomans who live in one of 4 zip codes. The 98404 zip code, which is the east side of Tacoma, 98405 Hilltop, 98409, which is South Tacoma, and 98408, which is the south end of Tacoma. And these are single income households that have children under the age of 17, or if the child has disabilities, then under the age of 21 and are at between 100 and 200% of poverty, the federal poverty level, meeting that ALICE criteria, and ALICE, that population that the mayor mentioned earlier. So we're happy. We're going to have time to answer questions that you might have specifically about the criteria, but really what it came down to, it was that prior to the pandemic, 40% of Tacoma households identified as being above poverty line, often working one or more jobs and still unable to make ends meet and meet their family's basic needs. These particular zip codes were pulled from the city's equity index as typically underserved, and ended up showing larger numbers of ALICE families compared to families under the poverty level. So while we know that there are thousands in our community that are struggling, we hope to show here that families can be well above the poverty level and still require additional support. So say, for instance, federal poverty for single adult and one child is roughly about $17,000 a year. So just think about that. Adult and one child, $17,000 a year is the federal poverty level. And with the average rent in Tacoma coming in at $1,500 a month, there's really very little room for surviving, let alone thriving, in our current classification of poverty and struggle. So, again, to reiterate very strongly what words that the mayor mentioned, what we hope to do is to showcase that poverty is a systems failure and not a personal failure. And we have to look at the systems. We have to look at what we can learn from this particular demonstration, the potential policies that can be developed, or the policies that need to be changed at both the state and federal level. So to discuss further how we plan to do this, I'm going to pass it off to our program director, Abigail Lawson.
Thank you, Donna, and thank you, Mayor, and really just thank you all so much for joining us today to discuss this exciting news of our first disbursement for the GRIT program going out today. To dive right in, like Donna and the Mayor have said, one of our main kind of that overarching goal is to prove here that poverty is in fact a systems failure rather than a personal one, which is quite an undertaking. And so there are a couple of ways that we plan to address this. One of which will be through our partnership with the University of Pennsylvania's Center for Guaranteed Income Research. They'll be doing more of our formal findings, which will take 2 tracks, one of which will be spending behavior. So through our partnership with an organization, the finance app called Steady, STEADY, which just kind of offhand, they're a really wonderful organization that have gone out of their way to be incredibly supportive. They've been working overtime this week to get our recipients their dollars. And through our partnership with Steady, our research partners will be able to monitor to an extent where the $500 is going each month. In order to do this, or the reason that we're doing this is so that we can have a more well-rounded understanding of what the guaranteed income is doing in our community, potentially highlighting the greatest needs in our community, as well as just showcasing really the agency that our recipients will have over these dollars that they're receiving. The second track of research that our researchers will be following will be through different in-depth surveys and interviews that they'll be hosting with our recipients. And by checking in every 6 months with our recipients, including the 6 months after the disbursement, our researchers will be able to get a feeling from the recipients themselves what this impact of the guaranteed income has had in their life, if anything has changed by having a consistent income floor. They'll be looking at specific things such as physical functioning, impacts on mental health, income volatility, consumption, access to education. Specifically in Tacoma, we'll be looking into access to affordable childcare, as well as consistent and safe housing options. And those more formal findings, the spending behavior will get quarterly. We'll release that publicly through both our newsletter and our website. The in-depth surveys and the interviews, we'll get those findings in the first half of 2024. And again, we'll share that publicly as well. And while we are really excited for those findings, something that I think I speak for all of us that we really think is where kind of the depth of grit is going to happen and where we are going to be able to hit that goal of providing narrative shift and providing a change in how we all communally understand poverty will be through the coalition of what we're calling our storytelling cohort. So throughout the next couple of months, I'll be working with the recipients to identify 5 of them that are interested in engaging with the media. These folks will be our media-facing people, so they will be open for interviews in a couple of months. And we'll also be working with them to design either a podcast, a blog, or whatever feels true to them in order to kind of create a direct media outlet from the program out into the public specifically. And like I said, we really are excited about this aspect of it because while the formal findings will provide a lot of information for the federal policy scape and for the state policy scape as well to inform those decisions, these in-depth interviews and these conversations that we'll have with the recipients that will be more forward-facing will allow us to really let these people speak for themselves. I have full faith through my conversations, my one-on-one conversations I've had with all 110 of these recipients, that they know best what their situation is, that they know best what the gaps are in the current systems, and from there, they also have the insight of what the solutions potentially are and what they need at any given moment. And so I think we all are really looking forward to that opportunity to get to hear from these individuals, to get to allow them to really provide this narrative shift for us by being the narrators of the story moving forward. And I also just wanted to take a moment today to thank some of our other community partners that have been absolutely instrumental in the protection of benefits and safety and agency of our recipients, namely in the community goodwill. They have provided our benefits counselors that have sat down one-on-one with our recipients to discuss the impacts of these new dollars on their public assistance programs. Through that work, we've also been supported by the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta, who's an organization that's taken on the mission of advancing economic self-sufficiency, and they've provided us some analysis and some impact work as well. And then Steady, again, which I brought up earlier, they are one of our agencies that have been just completely instrumental in getting these dollars out to our recipients, and they do great work for the other mayors for guaranteed income cities as well across the nation. So we are looking forward to all of it, and we'll share it all publicly, and I'll now pass it back to Mayor Woodards.
Thank you, Abigail, and thank you, Donna, not only for your leadership in helping to make Grit happen in Tacoma, but for your passion and commitment to those in our community, to Alice, who need us the most. As I've said already, I think I could say it 100 times, 110 people today will receive $500 from Grit. That can be life-changing for some of those in our community in terms of being able to meet just their basic needs, but then so incredibly important at the time of year that we're in right now. This program, as I've said, is going to be amazing, and I love the fact that it's research-based, so we'll get to not only administer the program, but really understand the difference that it makes as we continue to seek innovative solutions to address poverty in our community. Now, let's be clear, while we couldn't do this work without our entire United Way team and the partners that I mentioned earlier, I do want to thank some other partners really quickly. Before we put the slide up, I do want to acknowledge that Councilmember Christina Walker, who is joining us on the call today, who is my partner in this work at the city. And then I also want to acknowledge the fact that Councilmember Ryan Mello has joined us, and who's been a great support from the county. But in addition to those people who have joined us today and for their support, this program also came together because of the support of other members of our community, and those are our generous donors. While we received a good portion of the money from being part of the mayor's alliance, the national alliance, we still had local dollars to raise. So I want to take this opportunity to thank our generous donors, the Group Health Foundation, City of Tacoma, Pierce County, Verizon, Puget Sound Energy, Reinvent Stockton Foundation, Virginia Mason Franciscan Health, Greater Tacoma Community Foundation, and the United Way of Pierce County. Let me just from the bottom of my heart really express my true gratitude to all of you for recognizing that this investment really will change the lives and the trajectory of families in our community. We are grateful for that. So with that, that will end the formal portion of this press conference with our announcements, and we will open the floor for questions from those of you who have attended today. And I will turn it back over to our moderator.
Thank you, Mayor. If you have questions, you may submit those questions in the chat. We did ask anyone to submit questions ahead of time, and some did that. And it looks like the first question is for you, Mayor. Will Grit be an ongoing program? If so, would it be run by United Way or the city?
Well, I hope it's an ongoing program. I mean, if we can continue to raise funds, and I know that when the city of Stockton first launched their guaranteed income pilot, they initially launched for 12 months, and then we got into COVID. They went to 16 months, and I think ultimately they ended up closer to 24 because they were able to raise additional funding. If we can raise additional funding, I think there's an opportunity that we can look at an extension. But again, this is a demonstration. So the goal of this is to really get some movement on the national level so that it's not just in Tacoma, but that it could happen across the country. I think in terms of who will run it, I mean, I think that's to be decided. Obviously, I'm extremely grateful for United Way in stepping up. I think that this program does belong in a nonprofit space and not in city government. So it wouldn't be my goal to have the city run it. But again, depends on what we learn in the next 12 months. But my hope would be is that we would stay in partnership with United Way. But we may discover as we learn, we'll grow and we'll adjust accordingly.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Donna, will you ever work with those under the poverty line?
To add to what the mayor was saying, I mean, this is a demonstration project and we're looking at one specific population at this particular point. And the hope is that this demonstration project will help us understand the efficacy of demonstration projects. And is the Alice population the right population? Is it a population that is below the poverty line? It hopefully will help us answer some questions around, you know, how does a guaranteed income affect persons with disabilities or other populations within the community. So, you know, our hope is that we create that enough data is collected to help inform those policies that are at the state and at the federal level that also directly impact people that are below the poverty line. So it's right now, I think we're just going to be in a year's worth of learning. You know, the intent is not to necessarily design an guaranteed income program for Tacoma, but it's really to gather the information to see exactly how we can help inform some of the larger systems that are in place that are going to also impact those individuals that are at the poverty level.
Thank you, Donna. It looks like Lionel, you have a clarifying question. Lionel's question is, so to be clear, raising the funds for this pilot program came from businesses, community organizations. Does any of the funding come from the city? Mayor, would you like to answer this question?
Absolutely. So when we first started, when we first announced that we would be doing this demonstration in Tacoma, I promised that we would not use any general fund dollars to support this program, just because we are obviously, there are a lot of issues that the city is facing and that we need to deal with. But what we did do is through our ARPA dollars, our recovery plan dollars, we did pledge $100,000, and that's not for direct payments, but to go to the administration of the program. There's money that we had to raise for the direct payments of the program, and then we needed to raise the money to administer the program. And so the city did put in $100,000 towards the administration, and that came from ARPA funding.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
It looks like this other question is for you, Mayor.
Okay.
How do you know if the program was a success or failure?
Well, you know, I outlined kind of our guiding principles, the things that we're going to measure the success of the program against. And so when I talked about investing in Alice, when I talked about cultivating resiliency, when I talked about changing the narrative and building support, we will know we're successful if we can have impact on any of those things. Obviously, we're already investing in Alice. But if we can change the narrative and build more support, then we consider this program to be successful. We did not make clear metrics at this point saying, well, how many people stayed in housing, how many people were able to get their kids into daycare, because those are the two focuses that we took on in this project. But the data, it's really just gathering the data that will tell us the success. What we found in Stockton, when they did their guaranteed income project, we found a couple things. One, we found out that people were able to get better jobs. That they were working 2 or 3 jobs and were able to get a job where they were working just one job. And one of my favorite stories is about a young man who was able to take a day off work in retail, in the service industry. He could now afford to take a day off work to actually go interview for a better job, and he got the better job. I think the other thing that was really inspiring to me that they learned in the Stockton project was the fact that the mental health of these families increased. And I think sometimes we're looking for the numbers and we're trying to pinpoint exactly, did they make more money? Did they lift themselves out of poverty? Did they get to a new income bracket? But I think even changing the mental health of folks gives them a better opportunity and sets them up for success. So I think, again, we're studying it, we're going to get data, but our goal really is to change the narrative and build support.
Thank you, Mayor. Abigail, this question is for you. If you could clarify when research data will be available to the public.
Yeah, it's a great question. So the spending behavior will get quarterly updates from our research partners, and we'll share that quarterly when we get it via both our newsletter and our website as well, which I can drop both of those links in the chat. And then the more formal findings that we'll get from our research partners that will come from the in-depth surveys and interviews will come to us in the earlier part of 2024. So we'll share those out then as well.
Thank you, Abigail. The other question we've had multiple times is the media able to interview families?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer that one as well. It's a great question, and that is the goal. Our hope is that we'll be able to put our families as the face of this program, and that they will really be kind of the liaison for all of our findings. And that timeline is coming in a couple of months. I'll be working with the recipients to identify 5 folks, 5 different individuals and their families that are wanting to engage with the media. And so if you are part of the media and are interested in interviewing some of these families, definitely just reach out to me. I think Natasha, our moderator, dropped my email in the chat. So just send me an email and I will notify you as soon as those families are available for interviews. But until then, we want to let them enjoy the holidays, enjoy these new funds in their bank accounts, and really just live into the program.
Thank you, Abigail. In the last 3 minutes, it looks like we have time for one more question from Tisha. Moving forward, will the funding come from the city budget? Although there is a sincere desire and hope to help our community, we must be mindful of the fact that we are coming out of a recession. Can you answer this question, Mayor?
I can. Well, I can answer the question and say I'm not sure. I've made a vow that we will not use general fund dollars for this, and I'm going to make sure that that's the case because we do have a lot of priorities here in the city. But should we have access to more ARPA funds, more federal funding, a lot of cities across the country, there are probably somewhere between 15 to 20 pilot projects happening across the country right now. And a lot of them have used federal funding to launch their programs. And so should we get additional federal dollars, we could certainly look at that, but it is not my goal. It has never been my goal to use any of our general fund dollars currently to help pay for Grit.
Thank you, Mayor. This concludes our question and answer segment of our press conference. We will make this recording available at the website that we dropped into the chat, and I will add Abigail's contact information one more time if you have follow-up questions. Thank you, everyone, for attending this press conference.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being
Thank you,
here.
everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Okay, I have to jump off the call as well. We can talk later.
Okay. All right. Thank you.